In your coverage of the Mahdi, what do you make of the guy? You think he's a method actor? You think he's sick in the head? You think he's tapping into some actual demonic forces?
Fully involved or somebody else in the background? I think it's very sus, and I think there's probably some intelligence background, especially with Arab Spring.
For real, you think he might be a CIA agent?
For example, Russia and other countries have banned Scientology and Jehovah's Witnesses because they
I think were verified to be Russian spies or somehow connected, and they were going out and hiring conservative influencers, speakers, and giving them pretty crazy amounts of money for
Ruslan.
Before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. So if you're new here, if you're not new here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 800K. And when we look at the back end, we find out a lot of you guys who watch this channel regularly are not subscribed, meaning you just let the algorithm kind of work my videos in front of you. So hit that subscribe button, join us on this journey. Now, let's jump into this clip with my guy, Jay Dyer. So our very own Zach Sparazzo's brother actually saw one of your videos about the Mahdi and said you'd done some coverage on it. And we just covered the Mahdi, and they responded to us, his cult podcast, the official religion website, YouTube responded to us. In your coverage of the Mahdi, what do you make of the guy? You think he's a method actor? You think he's sick in the head? You think he's tapping into some actual demonic forces that are potentially helping him do these miracles that he's alleged of doing? What do you make of it?
It's funny you say that, because the first thing I noticed was the airbrush image of himself. It looked like DJ Khaled.
DJ Khaled,
who is that in the background?
Without any gray in his beard, by the way. Right, it's just like he looks removed, 10 years younger in that.
I mean, I think first of all, it's preposterous, like on the surface. And then you notice it's like a weird, he's got these icons around him that look kind of Catholic, kind of Orthodox. And then he's got a giant bust of some dude that looks like a Caesar bust, but looks like an accountant.
I thought it was Phil Jackson, the Lakers basketball coach.
Exactly. It looks like, I was like, why do you have a bust of like an accountant or Phil Jackson there? So weird aesthetics going on. And then, why are you wearing a beanie? And then he actually gave an explanation of the beanie, which I thought was funny.
That's hilarious, because he's connecting with the working man.
Exactly.
You said that was Zach Sparazzo's job.
Right, yeah, with that jean. He's got full jeans, right?
He has his Canadian tuxedo
jean
on.
shoes over there. He's got jean socks, dude. But could you imagine jean socks? Dude, you should
I'm sure they exist.
Dude, get some jean socks that say "Bless God" on it. Right?
I just might. Coming over great
working class right there, dude. The other thing that was weird about him, which is like all cult leaders, you notice, because we did a bunch of podcasts on Osho back in the day, and it's like they're on pills or something. Is there like he's like this and he doesn't move, and he's like, I am the Mahdi, and then he talks really slow. I found this clip of Osho where he's talking about, man, I am drunk right now, dude. He literally says that in like, he's like with a huge crowd.
So you think he's medicated?
Man, I am drunk. He looks medicated and out of it. But
how about that 9-foot stage where he's like hovering
like,
over there like this?
I noticed in Cameron's video too, he did a really good, Cameron Bertuzzi, when he did the breakdown of like his background.
Yep.
And the Arab Spring stuff is a huge red flag, because he was a mega activist in the Arab Spring, which, if you go into the history of Arab Spring, it's promoted by Western intelligence. There's a great book that deals with some of that, Full Spectrum Dominance by F. William Engdahl. Really good book. Good introduction to geopolitical stuff from an academic perspective if people are interested. Because I get asked all the time, where should I start? That one's a good one to start. But I think that it's also a clear engineered mix of perennialism, Neoplatonism, all of which I've read and studied pretty extensively, and Shia stuff. And Shia Islam is very amenable to Sufism, very close to Sufism, which is Neoplatonism. And the advantage of Neoplatonism is that it's kind of a skeletal thing that allows you to pick and choose from the world religions. And that way you can say, oh, look, all these world religions, they're actually my superstructure Neoplatonic religion, and you're all just manifestations of kind of the pieces that I have as the full picture. And a lot of cults do that. A lot of religious movements are clever enough to latch onto that. So I think it's definitely some kind of op engineered, whether he's fully involved or somebody else in the background. I think it's very sus, and I think there's probably some intelligence background, especially with the Arab Spring.
For real,
stuff.
you think he might be a CIA agent?
Well, I don't know about CIA, but it's very likely that it could be something like that.
Wow. Yeah. The Arab Spring stuff was weird. We talked about that a bit too. That's a tail sign that something's going on.
Something in the background.
Yeah. And so, what would be the would the intelligence connection be a correlation or causation to what he's doing now?
Again, just going on gut analysis, spending a lot of time studying cults and religions and the overlap with intelligence stuff, because they have a lot of interest in cults and religions. In fact, I might even write my next book on religion and intelligence.
Okay.
We've done a lot of lectures in the last few years on that specific subject matter because very few people go into that. People don't know that the state has a vested interest in wanting to make churches forms of what's called soft power. And soft power is a way to, if you're the state or if you're a superpower, to extend your influence in other cultures through non-kinetic warfare. So you're doing it not with guns and tanks per se, but with culture. Hollywood has been a very powerful engine of Western soft power. You know, I mentioned writing about James Bond in the Cold War. Bond was a form of projecting Western soft power to other nations in the Cold War, right? So you've got these Soviets, they're tyrannical, they want to lock you down. James Bond represents, Western masculinity, capitalism, free love, all these kinds of things that Bond is supposed to represent. So likewise, intelligence agencies are very interested in, have always been interested in cults and religions. Crowley was a spy, as we said. Many New Agers. Madame Blavatsky, there's really good. She's the mother of all the New Age movements. There's a lot of good evidence to suggest that she was also a spy. She worked with the KGB. One of her handlers was actually a KGB guy. So I think that it's very possible. It's very likely. I don't know for sure, but the Arab Spring activism definitely suggests a possibility there. There have been a lot of connections between the CIA that not many people know about and like Shia and Sufi movements. CIA's made a lot of contacts with Shia movements. You can look into the history of the Naqshbandi, and they were relevant because they were involved in drug trafficking. I'm not saying that this dude is connected to the Naqshbandi or these orders, but in situations like the Cold War, a lot of times the Western intelligence operatives found it beneficial to make alliances with Muslims for the purpose of fighting Soviets. So like the most famous example is 1979 Soviet conflict, where Brzezinski and Carter, Robert Gates, they all openly wrote about and strategized to use Al-Qaeda against the Soviets. And so they armed them, they funded them. It's called Operation Cyclone, well-known, it's declassified. In fact, Max Blumenthal wrote a really good recent book on this subject matter called, I'm not paid to promote anybody, I just have these with me. So his book's really good, Management of Savagery, which is Western support for certain Islamic sects. And that can be Sunni, sometimes Shia, and even can be cults and weird groups like we're talking about with this guy. Now, not proven, just my assessment.
Just based on your gut and just kind of understanding some of the background.
The way that a lot of this stuff usually works, yeah.
Yeah, and then they kind of putting him in motion, and or do you think they're still currently supporting him in some way, shape, or form?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just looking at the background and the red flags that usually pop up with these kinds of mouthpieces for this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't think every cult is run by a spy agency, but you'll notice certain red flags that pop up where there's a likelihood of that. Like Scientology, I don't want to get you in legal trouble with Scientology, but like they have a long time connection with, for example, Russia and other countries have banned Scientology and Jehovah's Witnesses because they're pretty well-known covers for espionage.
Really?
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses, though?
And Mormons.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
Mm-hmm. It's well-known, yeah.
That's crazy. What is the how well-known and what is the evidence?
Well, Russia openly says, because these are...
They say, but I mean, like, what evidence do they have to, like, verify that?
Well, that's when you'd have to go into, like, a lot of spy biographies and, like, histories of espionage and connections that the Western intelligence agencies have had, not just with like certain groups of Islam, but with religion in general. I mean, if you think about it from the vantage point of the state, like you want to be using any means that you have at your disposal. And so if you've got a ready-made bunch of people who are activists or missionaries. Missionaries is a classic spy cover. Not saying all missionaries are spies. It's just a classic. I mean, USAID, Red Cross. These are classic covers for various types of espionage activity. For example, I just shared an old article that's on the CIA website, Covert Action Magazine from 1983, from the CIA's own website. An article about CIA support for one of the evangelical dictators in Latin South America. Mont, M-O-N-T-T. So people are interested, you can go read on my wall. That it should be pretty high up on my wall. But that's one example of just one during the Cold War where the CIA reached out to this guy and said, we want you on board. We're going to raise money for you with Jerry Falwell, Billy Graham. And so the evangelicals raised a lot of money to support this evangelical supposed dictator in Latin South America, Mont, M-O-N-T-T. So that's one case that's admitted. But if you want a book on this, I did a talk from an academic text from University of Florida. His name is Michael Graziano, and he wrote a thesis that was published called Errand into the Wilderness, History of the CIA and Religion. That whole book is about the agency's attitude towards religious movements, particularly in the Cold War, but not exclusively, because there's also a chapter at the end about Iran and Shia Islam. And it's a natural posture, but just people don't know about it, but it's a natural posture for the state to take to try to make alliances with various religious movements.
Interesting.
Let me give you one more example that's declassified that's proof of this. It's called the Doctrinal Warfare Program. A very famous Catholic named David Wimhoff wrote a giant 800-page book on it. It's really good. It's called Time Life Magazine, John Courtney Murray and the American Proposition. It's the name of the book. And it's about the 2013 declassified document, the Doctrinal Warfare Program, which the CIA set up under people like C.D. Jackson to recruit as many Roman Catholic theologians, scholars, and prelates as they could. And we don't know all of them, but we know that John Courtney Murray, the famous Jesuit Americanist philosopher, was in it. We know that to some degree they had Cardinal Spellman involved. But the idea was that it's a Cold War. We got to do whatever we can. So you're going to work with us at every capacity that we need you to help beat the Soviets in the Cold War. The problem, and I agree that like Soviets are bad guys. I'm not pro-communist. But the problem is that now you've made this alliance with the intelligence agencies. Now they have a lot of leverage with you. And if you look into Operation Gladio, another declassified thing that ties into the Vatican Bank, that helps to explain a lot of this as well.
I'm sure this goes the other way too, though. Like we just recently saw the big scandal with, there was a company that was hiring the likes, I think the most prominent name I remember was Tim Pool for Russia, these crazy videos. They're getting paid outlandish amounts to kind of make this like soft Russian-esque propaganda videos. And this happened hugely within the conservative sphere as well.
Well, I know Tim, and Tim's always been cool to me. He's always had me on and been very positive. I don't think that I never detected like that Tim wants to push Russian propaganda. So I think what happens in these kinds of situations is that an entity with money and donors reaches out and says, we want to support your media group. We'll give you $10 million. I don't know the background of that situation, but I'd seriously doubt that Tim would be, he's pretty media savvy. I doubt he would be.
It was a third party. It was a third party.
I think,
so it wasn't directly to Tim.
Yeah.
It was a couple that was running some sort of agency, and this couple was being paid. They, I think, were verified to be Russian spies or somehow connected, and they were going out and hiring conservative influencers, speakers, and giving them pretty crazy amounts of money for very low-performing videos.
Yeah, I'm not trying to deny that. Basically, all countries do this.
Yes,
and I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying like China has people that they influence with money and media and operatives. Russia has people. Every country essentially does this to some degree with if they have the capabilities to do so.
Yeah.
So this is just what happens.
Would you feel comfortable putting Tucker's tour of a Russian grocery store in a similar category? He's there. He's surprised. You know, you haven't seen this video? He's like, they have bread. They got this. They got this. And it just seems like straight Russian. Yeah.
That was my Tucker laugh.
Yeah, he does that. He's like, oh, they got bread. They got this. They got that. And it was like, what are you doing, dude? Like, why are you in Russia grocery shopping to show them that they have better produce than America and it's cheaper?
I love Tucker, so I don't think that he's a Russian operative or anything like that. I think he at least seeks to, in these situations, try to get both sides. I thought his Putin interview was pretty good. I thought he asked really good questions. I don't think it was any kind of like softball thing. I think it was a real valid interview.
Putin spent a lot of time giving us the history.
The history that was it was like a history. It was like a history course, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't see the grocery store thing, so I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah,
but
it's pretty funny.
Could I recommend, if people do want to get Esther Hollywood 3, a lot of really cool movies. 1 and 2 obviously have a lot, but 3's got a lot of like Christopher Nolan. It's got all the Marvel movies.
It's pretty dope. When I didn't read the whole thing, but I definitely looked through it, and I was like, man, you hit a lot of the stuff I'm personally into.
You can go to jaysanalysis.com in the shop, and you can pre-order the part 3, and they're all signed. You can also get 1 and 2, but
J-Analysis.
Jay's Analysis with
jaysanalysis.com. We'll link that.
And there'll be a shop, and then you can get part 3, and it will come out in 2 months.
2 months, July.
Yes, mid-July.
Mid-July. So it'll be out, and they can check that out. And yeah, it looks dope. I mean, these are great. Part 1 and 2. But when I looked at that one, it just had more.
A lot of stuff you like.
It's just the stuff that I'm into. You know, you're going really deep in some of this stuff that like just kind of older movies. But on the third one, it was like, oh, like
it's more newer stuff. Right.
Batman, like all the stuff that I would be
all
into.
the Marvel. Yep.
Why wait until this entire thing premieres on YouTube? Why not sign up for a free 7-day trial of our Patreon community and see this entire interview, as well as all of our interviews, early before they hit the public. And you'll also get access to the extended version of our conversations that are sometimes a little too spicy for YouTube. All right, so head on over to Patreon. Link is in the description or pinned comment. Here's a little preview of what's available on Patreon.
And it was sponsored by CIA's Voice of America. And his papers were about drugs and chemicals actually changing gender.
Why do you think there's this prediction happening? Why is there this fascination with the end days? And how is it different than the biblical account?
Yeah, I think Hollywood predicted its own demise by pushing an Antichrist message and philosophy, which is mainstream media outlets, and like they started doing hit pieces saying that it was like this evil online cult and movement.
Some of the folks that I see that are coming towards Eastern Orthodoxy seem to have a crippling fear and anxiety around their own salvation.
The argument that you're making violates the very thing that you just said would relativize the positions.
The argument that I'm making right now.
Your argument is no different than anyone else's argument. You're citing, you're saying, I have this position, they have that position, you have your position.
Yeah.
Of course, but that has nothing to do with
Ruslan.